All right, one more video for you guys today in between football games. So it's halftime of the Colts-Chiefs game as I shoot this live. Intercept with a good article about what happened with the deal that the Congressional Progressive Caucus had with Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic leadership. So they were supposed to get 40% of all the committees in what's the major committees, Ways and Means, Financial Services, Energy and Commerce, et cetera, right? And the Congressional Progressive Caucus was. And it turns out, you know, the Intercept does a good job breaking down the numbers. They did in Ways and Means, but they already had 40% there, but they increased their percentage. And then in some of the other ones, they didn't get it, et cetera. Those are details, and they're important details, and they did a great job of covering it, as usual. Ryan Grimm, David Dayen, I think Ida Chavez. So they did a wonderful job in covering, and you should read it. But to me, what's more important is what are they going to do in the long run? So in a sense, the minutia of this is important, and we'll follow it over the next 2 years. So for example, it's not just details to point out that Ro Khanna did not get any seats. That's not an accident. They know Ro is a progressive fighter. They hate that. And so they didn't give him a seat in any of the important committees. That's a big, insult to progressives on purpose. They're not unsavvy people. They know that. Pramila Jayapal wanted to be on 2 committees, get a waiver to also be on Ways and Means because it's so important, because that's where all the spending bills go through. But she was already on the Judiciary Committee. She did not get a waiver. Ocasio-Cortez wanted to be on Ways and Means. She didn't get Ways and Means. So they shut out a lot of these guys. And then the establishment did this cute little trick where they're like, well, look, you said you wanted people that were on the Congressional Progressive Caucus. And so, but as it turns out, there are really not many standards to be in the Congressional Progressive Caucus. So a lot of them are actually conservatives. They're also New Democrats. New Democrats is Wall Street Democrats. Well, so what did Nancy Pelosi do? She took all the conservative Democrats in the so-called Congressional Progressive Caucus, the New Democrat guys, and put them on the committees. And she's like, well, I said I'd give you those spots. I gave them to you. I just gave them to the most conservative people you had in your caucus. Ha 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 ha. Okay, so some progressives are very upset about that. I guess I'm less upset. So why? Well, that's getting screwed over, right? So why am I less upset? It's because, of course, I mean, look, I guess, and right now, it's not going to be enough for the naysayers. They're still going to say, no, Nancy Pelosi's a master legislator. She's she's liberal, she's progressive. What's wrong with you? She's the best of the best. Oh, my God, why aren't you kissing up to her? Et cetera, right? But the reality is, I know Nancy Pelosi's conservative, economically, massively conservative. I know she's going to trick the progressives. Like, the fact that they feel tricked is kind of honestly sad, right? You didn't think, like, I'm trying to explain that to the leaders and I feel obnoxious saying that, so that's why I paused, right? Look, I'm giving my perspective for what it's worth. And my perspective is that Nancy Pelosi is not your friend. So if you think you made a deal with her and that she's progressive and she's going to back you, I feel bad saying it. I paused again, but it's naive. It's naive. She's not your friend. She's not a progressive. She will find a way to help the conservatives within the Democratic Party. And she did. She did it again, of course. Guess what? She's going to do it again and again and again. And so, unfortunately, this is another thing that I'm going to be proven right about. When I said we shouldn't go into Iraq, Ben and I said that on the Young Turks 17 years ago, or however long it was now. And people were like, oh, you're crazy. Of course we should go to Iraq. It's going to be easy. And weapons of mass destruction and blah, 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 right? When I said Obama wasn't really going to give you a lot of change, people were like, oh, you're nuts. He's got 3-dimensional chess, and at the end, we're going to get all of our priorities. What happened? And then at the end, they're like, oh, golly gee, it turns out the Republicans blocked those, and Obama didn't try that hard. Of course, Pelosi is not a progressive. So this is the appetizer, guys. The entree is, are they going to put any progressive priorities forward to vote on? And so both sides are wrong. I think the Congressional Progressive Caucus thinks, well, of course they are. I mean, Nancy Pelosi, of course. I mean, yeah, she told us and stuff. She's not going to do that. You're totally wrong about that, okay, if you believe that. Now, the part that Pelosi and the Democratic establishment's wrong about is they think, oh, well, it'll be cute. We'll pat the progressives on the head. We'll trick them. We'll give all the important positions to conservatives, and we'll never even consider their bills. And it'll be fine. That's where they're massively wrong. No, it will not be fine. So all of this is in service to eventually screwing us over by not proposing any of our priorities, not even allowing a vote. So, you know what I say, hear me now, quote me later, okay? I think we earned the title of Homo Progressives by being right about stuff like that. So, by the way, tyt.com/join to become a member of the Progressives or a member of TYT and help the progressive cause as well as get all our shows. Okay, so you know that spiel. Okay, so last thing on this, guys. So when, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, the Democratic establishment and leadership still have not proposed any progressive legislation, Medicare for all, college for all, Green New Deal, progressive base is going to explode in anger. And I'm the bad guy for saying clowns, right? But these clowns in the Democratic leadership are going to be like, oh, what do you mean? How could you? Nancy Pelosi's so liberal. I mean, she won't do anything at all that's liberal. I mean, she supports gay rights. Oh, wow, thank you. So you're not a monster. Okay, congratulations on not being Dracula. Okay, that's a very, very low bar. Okay, great. That's why we vote against Republicans, because they are monsters. But that's not something you brag about. She will not propose any of that stuff, and she will fight it tooth and nail because she is not a progressive. No one in the Democratic establishment leadership is progressive. In fact, they fight progressives for a living. They fight progressives way harder than they fight Republicans. So hear me now, quote me later. You're going to see that's exactly what's going to happen. And today, or this week, when they screwed over progressives in the caucus and went with New Democrats for all the committee positions, it was a warm-up act. It was an appetizer, but the entree's coming, and it's going to taste terrible. Okay, so then we fight. So for all of you that are unsure right now and don't want to fight yet, I hear you, brothers and sisters, but if I'm right, then come. Then the battle will be joined, and we're not going to let them get away with what Democrats have been doing for decades now, which is sitting on their ass and doing nothing and pretending to be progressive.